Thank you for tuning into Literary Blend, a publishing podcast. I'm your host, Demi Michelle Schwartz. There's no perfect recipe for chasing a dream in the publishing industry, but I hope the conversations on this show give you the ingredients you need to bake yours into reality. So let's flip the page and get into this chapter of Literary Blend. Hello, friends. Welcome back to Literary Blend. Today's chapter is called Overcoming Barriers as an Author. And joining me on the show is an author I'm delighted to have a conversation with. Please welcome J.K. Raymond. Hello.
Hi, Demi. This this is J.K. Raymond. It's really nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. How are you doing today?
I'm actually having a really good day. Been really busy doing some writing today, so it was a good day.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I'm delighted you are taking some time out of your busy day to chat with me on the show. I'm really excited for this conversation, but before we get into that, I would love for you to share a little about yourself and your journey in publishing so far.
Well, actually, I have a really interesting but kind of a short intro into publishing. It's not like others. I've never so much as done a query. I became friends with Abigail from Wild Ink Publishing, and we were friends for years. And she opened her publishing house, and I said, "Hey, I've got a manuscript that I had been working on for 7 years as something to do to not go mad as a stay-at-home mom." I just wanted to use my brain, and I had a lot of opinions and funny ideas about things, and so I just started putting them down on paper, and they'd become a book over time. And I asked her to read it, and she loved it. And the next day, I was signed to Wild Ink. So that was my intro to publishing and how I became an author, because I didn't go to school for that. I actually have a degree in art and education, K through 12, and then another education degree, elementary first through five.
I love that so much. That is such a cool story. And I think this just really shows how important relationships are in publishing. Abby's amazing. I'm so grateful to be a publicist at Welding, but I think it's really great how you had that friendship and then it turned into a book deal and now you're published. So I think it's really great. And this really illustrates how building connections in publishing really can go a long way and you have no idea what doors could open for you in the future.
You don't, and I'll tell you another thing. I mean, I know so many people who deserved a deal 10 years ago, and have kept knocking and knocking and knocking at that door and didn't get in until they got in at Wild Ink. But one of the things I will say is that once you're in that door, the community just, oh, the doors open that you would never know were there before. So to say, to build a writing community, if you can, even if it's through a little group on Facebook, like just a female writers group or something like that, I share things with them that I wouldn't have known otherwise. So, get into those forums, get into those communities. You never know where that connection is going to happen.
Right, exactly. And I think that's why it's really important to just go in with the mindset of making genuine connections, not always looking for what somebody can do for you, because those
Right.
opportunities will present themselves authentically if you have those genuine connections.
That is exactly right. That is exactly right. And even something happened to me this week just through a genuine connection.
Yeah.
It wasn't another author deal, but it's like a spin-off. It's something that's good because of that.
Right.
So, and the writing world is very small.
It is.
So, so once you're in there and you have a good name, that does a lot for you.
Yes. No,
If you act
absolutely.
like a genuine good person, you know.
Right. No, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, that was one of the things when I first got into publishing. I thought it was this massive, massive place, and it can look like a big space because there's a lot of people, but everyone does sort of know everyone, which is something I didn't know going into it.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, being mindful of the genuine connections and being a good person always.
Right, because if you are just as much as you are good, if you do something bad, that gets around 3 times as fast,
Yeah,
just like in the real
yeah.
world.
For sure. Awesome. So let's shift gears into our chat for today on overcoming barriers as an author. And I know you have a lot of personal experience with this. So can you give the listener some insight into why you are drawn to this topic for our chat today?
The barrier for me with writing is I have a chronic illness. I have rheumatoid arthritis, very, very bad. I've had four cervical fusions. So I've had my neck rebuilt four separate times. That's from separate incidences. And in my 30s, I had Lyme disease for about 7 years, which I battled into, remission. But, a side effect from that can be the rheumatoid arthritis. So I'm still kind of, it's been for 20 years now, I've been in pain. So it's a full-time job to be in 20-hour pain. And sometimes it's worse and sometimes it's better. And you have to write when you feel better, regardless of whether or not you want to. You can't always, it doesn't matter about the music. And sometimes then once you're signed and you have contracts, and times that, like right before Infinite Mass was about to be published, it had its publish date and we were doing the final edits. It didn't matter what I felt like. I just had to do it. And I know that my work wasn't as good as it would be otherwise, but I know that these are problems that are not specific to me. Whether or not that's chronic disease, that causes inflammatory pain, or if you're struggling with mental, mental illness, depression, um, just a myriad of things, even juggling your own life. There's a struggle to get to the keyboard. But for me specifically, the struggle is pain.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for being so open about that.
Yeah,
And I think we'll touch too on, some other tips and tricks you have for pushing through it when it's difficult. But in general, I love what you said at the end there, because no matter what someone is doing in their life, no matter who they are, everyone faces some kind of barrier. Maybe some are more extreme than others, but the thing is, you can look at someone else's life and be like, oh, they don't have it as hard as me. But when you're in your own shoes and you're experiencing whatever you're experiencing, that is your challenge. And so I don't think we should be comparing our journeys to each other, because
right. And what
everyone has
happens
different
to me
lives.
does not take away what happens to you. It doesn't
Right.
diminish it because it may seem grander. It doesn't diminish what you're dealing with.
No, exactly. And that's the other thing too. I think that we all, no matter what we're facing, we're finding the perseverance and the drive to be authors because we love what we do and we want to be in publishing. And so we do find the time and the space for whether it's like a disability or chronic pain, mental illness, family, jobs. There's so many barriers that we face. And I think is also important what you pointed out there too, that when you feel good is when you have to do it, even if you're not feeling inspired. I mean, I feel that just on a more basic level, if I have a space where like I know I need to get work done on my manuscript and I'm just not feeling it, but I know I have a lot of editing work coming up and this is the only big chunk of time I have to do it. And so I think
Right.
that's one of the things about treating writing like a job. Like if we have jobs, we have to do our work regardless if we feel like it or not, and writing is much the same.
It is. It absolutely is, except it doesn't pay.
No, not yet.
No, the payment is the finished work. There's a drive that comes with it that if you have that call, you can't not do it.
Right,
I feel
exactly.
like.
No, no, you're
Yeah,
exactly
because it
right.
just it drives me insane. I feel
Yeah,
like I have to do
yeah,
it to keep the balance
yeah, for sure.
in my brain.
Yeah, absolutely. So, whenever you're dealing with periods where the pain might be very extreme and you're on a deadline or something and you have to push through it, what are some tips you have to share in that area?
It gets very dark in my head at those times where I feel like I can't. And there are moments where I just truly can't. And sometimes I have to tell someone. And that's something that you have to become, where I've learned to become honest with myself, is sometimes you have to reach out to people and tell people, I can't do it right now. Because you need to honor that this is too much for you right now. And doesn't mean that you're not worthy of the job. It just means you need a little extra time. And the other times you go pour yourself into the bathtub and warm your body up if you have the aches. And then you go get the lidocaine creams and you slather your body and you get whatever pain medications are available to you. And you sit down and you just start. And sometimes you might write, I don't know how I'm going to get through this, but I'm going to try. And sometimes it's not just writing your manuscript. It's just giving yourself a pep talk or a kick in the butt until finally, you've been in the chair long enough to settle in.
Yeah, no, I love all of
Sometimes
that.
that works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And the thing is that I love so much about what you said is it's okay to recognize that you need a break and that you can't do it at a given time. I think that we need to recognize that even if we're not writing a day or a week for some reason, that doesn't take away from the fact we're authors. I have so much admiration for authors who write every single day. That's not me, and that could never be me.
Right.
But, there are specific reasons why some people just physically can't do that or mentally can't do it. But that doesn't mean that they're any less of an author than the ones who do write every day. And needing to take
Right.
breaks for one
Right.
reason or another is just very important. And being honest with yourself is really important. And also being not afraid to tell other people. If you're working with the right people, if you're an agented author and you have that agenting relationship, or if you're working with a small press and you have that relationship with the publisher, either way, like communication with the people you're working with and letting them know up front, like these are some barriers I may face from time to time, then they're aware of that. And if it's a healthy business relationship, they will recognize that, because I always say like health comes first. And so
Right.
that's very important to me as well. And so being honest with yourself and others and not being ashamed about it either, you're still an author even if you're not writing every day.
And I think a lot of the shame from that comes from, the capitalistic mindset of, well, if you're not well, you need a doctor's note, you know, or, you're not giving it 100%. And that is, and I just, and we take pride in that, we're trained to from the time we're little, from the, show up to school and you get an award for never being ill. Those kinds of things, they take root in you, and it takes a lot to get past that. But one of the great things, like you said, is a small press for people like myself. I don't see myself ever leaving Wild Ink just because of the relationship that I've built there. I don't think that a big five would have that kind of room for me, the kind of place that I need to grow and to just be.
Yeah. No, for sure. And something you said there resonated more than I thought it ever could. You were talking about, this whole idea of even in school, like being recognized for not missing any classes and getting perfect attendance or whatever. When I was younger, I was a cheerleader and I
Me
got
too.
oh, no way. I got a
Yeah.
perfect attendance award. And at the time, it was like, oh my goodness, like I didn't miss a single practice or a single game or anything. But looking back, I can't imagine like how some of the other girls must have felt if they had some kind of barrier that restricted them from going to every single practice. Like when we have those kind of situations where people are being recognized for certain things like not missing certain things or doing something more often than others, I think it creates this mindset that they're better than everyone else, which is not the case. And from a young age, we're conditioned in a way to think that way, and I think that can be damaging to some, and so that's an issue in our world that, like, just really clicked in my brain. But I think
Yeah,
the
yeah,
other
it really
thing,
is.
yeah. So the other thing too is that I think there are a lot of things that we can be doing as authors, even if we're not writing, to further our craft and to make our connections and things like that. So if you're not well enough to write for one reason or another, I always say that thinking about your manuscript counts as writing, because if you're thinking about a scene or a character development, that's still working on your story, even though you're not actually typing it out. Also, if you feel like you need to develop your craft in a certain area, you can read books and you can listen to podcasts and you can do all these
I
things to
love
better
I love what you're
yourself.
saying right now because
Yeah,
I spend a lot of time in bed because of my pain.
right.
But one of the things that's developed from that is my ability to create videos
Yes.
because that's something I can do from my phone on my side. So
Mhm.
you find places where you can do that.
Right.
where you're not maybe sitting at the desk, but all of it, I like you stressed. I want to stress that absolutely every moment that you are in the writing world in any way, shape, or form, it counts.
It
You're writing.
does.
You're an author. You're doing all of those things, and you need to be all of those things in small presses.
Yes.
And from what I understand, even now in the big presses, you need to know how to market
You
yourself.
do.
So if you're laying in bed and you're marketing from your phone, that
It
counts.
does, for sure. And even just networking on Twitter, like go on there,
Right.
connect with other authors, connect with others in the industry. If a pitch event is going on, you can be laying in bed and supporting others in the writing community. There are a lot of other things. And I think sometimes we can really focus in on, I need to be writing the story, which is obviously the number one thing, it's working on the story. But all these other things are absolutely essential in order for you to develop yourself as an author.
And like you said, the very basic one, just read.
Oh, yeah,
Reading
no,
makes
for
you a better
sure.
author. Plus, it adds to, if you pick the right books, like ones in your own community, then you're building that network, which we said in the very beginning of the show is so important because you can do a review for them, a really thought out one, and that could create a review back for you. It can bounce back. It's, I shake your hand, you shake mine. So all of it counts as being an author, and anybody who says otherwise is a liar.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things as well, like whatever barrier you may be facing, if you have a couple minutes, if you're working multiple jobs and you have little breaks of time and you can only do your writing itself on the weekend, you can use those little spots of time to go online and make connections or read a chapter of a book from a friend in the writing community. Or if you're a querying author, you can research agents and small presses and you can work on your materials. Like there's a lot of things that we could be
You can apply
doing.
to be a judge for writing for other award
Yeah,
places
yeah.
and read books, and that's networking too, which is another way where if you feel like, well, maybe reading doesn't really apply, well, if you're a judge it does. So that's another thing you can reach out for and do.
Yeah, absolutely. So now I want to hear advice you have for any authors who are facing some kind of barrier and they're just feeling extremely discouraged.
Oh, have I been there? I've been in a dark place where I think I won't get back to it. I won't be able to do it as well as I did before, which I think a lot of people get. I'm on my sophomore book right now, and there's always the sophomore slump that goes with that, on top of the darkness that comes with it. But it if it's like my illness, it webs and wanes. And one of the things I have to tell myself is I know it will get better. Some days it's unbelievable, or some stretches where it goes on. Sometimes the stretches go on for months, and those can get really dark, but I know they'll go away. I know eventually it'll web and wane. For some people, there's a consistency to their disability, and it won't web and wane. And I don't know, it would be for them to say how they get through that. But I can tell you what I do with mine is I know that the day will get brighter, and then it will not last forever. And that's what I hold on to, and then I do those other little things we just spoke about to hide from the depression. I Falling in a book is the best way I've ever hidden from depression. I just dive in and disappear from the world that I'm in, well, until it goes away.
Yeah. No, I love all of that. And again, thank you so much for opening up about that and being so honest. And I think that, again, in moments where things are hard, it's completely okay to feel your feelings. I think sometimes we can get in our heads like it's a weakness if we're upset or if it's a weakness if we're frustrated, but it's not. Like that's just part of life and human emotions are part of life. And whenever you're dealing with something, if something is difficult at a period of time and you're feeling discouraged, you can work past that and just feel what you need to feel.
Just recently, I'm 52, and just for the first time ever, earlier this summer started seeing a therapist because sometimes you go, okay, it's gotten so dark now. Now I need to reach out and get some help, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
Sometimes just talking about it with somebody, I would not believe the pressure. You wouldn't believe the pressure that came off of my shoulders just by having an unbiased person just stop and listen.
Yeah. No,
It
that's
doesn't
really
even the
important.
advice almost doesn't even matter so much as it is just talking. And that's I would give that advice to anybody. If you are able and it's on your insurance, don't be afraid to reach out and do that because it will only benefit you. And
Yeah.
actually a lot of times another thing I do to help with the writing when it's bad and I hurt is I write about it hurting and I write about it sucking. And that's where my poetry comes in
Yeah.
because I can't write for long, just short little sentences, but I can write the anger or the upset or the just not unfairness of it all.
Yeah. No, literally, no. I love how you turn to writing as a form of getting things out. That's literally why I'm a songwriter. That's literally why I write music. But I think the
I
other thing
wish I
is
was a
well,
songwriter, actually. I'd always thought that would be the best way to get it out
it
because I
is.
could imagine like being able to pour that from my throat and my heart.
Yeah.
But God, it sounds like I'm gurgling glass.
Yeah. Oh, well, the other thing is what you were talking about of like talking to someone, whether that's a professional or someone else. I think this is where the writing community comes in too, because if you have writing friends, maybe they don't have the exact same condition as you or they're not in the same situation as you, but if they're facing some kind of barrier, they can empathize. They know what it's like. And that's why writing friends can be very, very essential, not only to support
Yeah.
you with the business side, but also to just be there and understand what you're going through.
Okay, so like yeah, you can totally have your writers friends to talk to. I've got this one friend and we hop on our Slack or whatever and we just vent to each other and we start the Slack with venting and we just throat we're like we just rage. We just dump all of our rage whatever's going on in our writing world or even in our home world because we've become that close of friends. And it's so precious to have somebody and then they rage back their side that they're dealing with and we know that we're just using each other to just mm, yell at the sky but have someone hear it.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And I think it's really important, again, to just have those people that you can turn to and to know you're not alone because there are others who are going through similar things or different things. But at the end of the day, there's barriers holding us back from doing what we love,
Yeah, and
and
not
it's
everybody
difficult.
has somebody they can rage that
Right.
to. Nobody, not everybody has that, and that I for them I hope that they find somebody that
Yeah.
they can.
Yeah. No, it's really important. So, just to wrap up, what are some final thoughts you have on overcoming barriers as an author?
There is a pride that comes at the end of writing a work when you have overcome that barrier. I wrote a short oh, I can't think of the word right now, not podcast. Anyway, I wrote a short piece called The Court of Pen and Pain, where it's you're dueling, you're dueling it the writing process while dueling pain. You've got a sword in each hand. So when you finished that piece, there's a double sense of pride because you finished a piece you're proud of, but you also fought demons to get there, and although you may be in a short, small circle, maybe the only people who know that you did more than just write it, you know that, and you know that you're a conqueror. And that is an amazing thing to feel.
What a fantastic
Thank you.
conversation. Yeah, no, absolutely. So now we've made it to your plot twist where I'm going to ask you a fun question you could have never seen coming. So, for your book, can you think of a certain song or artist that you feel best represents the story?
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cats in the Cradle. 100%.
Would you like to elaborate?
Yeah, well, Um, there is a small stuffed animal. The book starts out with my main character being small. Um, and it may, in some ways, I was told not to do that, but in other ways, I felt it was really, really important. And so, for the first two chapters, she's small, she's a child, and she has a stuffed animal, and it's I call it a Cheshire cat, but not really Alice in Wonderland, but it's a stuffed cat with a big smile on his face, and its name is Cradle, and it becomes a major player later on in life. Believe it or not, this small stuffed animal goes through a big metamorphosis, and the cat's in the cradle is literally the cat is in the cradle, and that is where the idea for this character came from. And then he ends up becoming, and I'll say this because it doesn't take you long to get there in the book, uh an angel that has been watching over her since the time she was a child.
I love that.
And he is the angel Metatron. So that's where you see the Metatron cube on the front of my book,
I love that so much.
which
Thank
is
you for
sacred
sharing.
geometry. And then it's a whole twist, and it's kind of like a re-origin story of the Big Bang Theory, and then also woven in with the ideas of quantum physics and sacred geometry. And then I throw every religion and I pile them in together as they ought be, in my opinion. I don't think anyone's wrong. I think there's a lot of right in every one of them, and so I do that, and I make sure to represent as many characters as possible, getting a little away from the cats in the cradle bit, but that's I'm spinning off. I'm proud of my work.
That is perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing, and thank you again for being on the show. Can you please share with everybody where they can find you online and check out your book?
Yeah, I'm a J.K. Raymond author on all of my socials, which includes Instagram, X, Facebook, and Threads. But my big one is TikTok, Aquarius Moon author, and that's where you'll find. I've got about 18K followers on there. So that's where my big one is, and then um, my website's under construction. I'm working on it, but it is jkraymond.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much again for joining me.
You're welcome. And it was fun being here. I really enjoyed it.
Yes, absolutely. And listeners, that is a wrap on this chat with J.K. Raymond, all about overcoming barriers as an author. If you enjoyed our conversation, please consider leaving Literary Blind a review and giving it 5 stars to help others just like you discover it. Also, if you have friends in publishing you think would enjoy the show, please pass it along to them. Thank you for listening, and until we flip to the next chapter, happy reading and writing.